general definition of chakras in Indian philosophy is that they are the apertures in the human frame are considered crucial for correspondence and communion between the various spheres of creation, that is macrocosm, and the nerve centers available in the brain called the microcosm. For the perception of microcosm, the spirit current must be associated with the proper apertures in microcosm with substance and power similar to those that exist in macrocosm. If the rhythm in which you repeat mystical Radhaswami name harmonizes with the rhythms of internal shabdas produced at different spiritual centers, a state of resonance is produced. The devotional methods prescribed for holding communion with higher spiritual spheres results in increasing the vital energy and also in infusing spirituality of the higher planes into the devotee. His physical frame thus benefits by an increase of spirituality and eventually the diffuse spirituality of the devotee. According to Indian yoga philosophy, popularly seen from the proper literature which is available, they say that there are 7 main chakras starting from the base of the spine through to the crown of the head. However, in Sant-Mat philosophy, there is much more reality beyond that. We are very lucky to have amongst us Professor P.S. Sasangi as the revered leader of the Radhaswami faith, who has through his various vision talks explained how the grand division of experiential consciousness is organized in 6 divisions. This graph was earlier shown by Dr. Dayal Pyari. And he's also described how some of the higher apertures are also located not simply in the spine but also are there in the human brain. The 3 divisions that you see them here, the lowest one corresponds to the coarser material or the body. The middle one relates to the universal mind, and the top relates to the spiritual centers. Very lucidly described by Dr. Dayal Pyari, some of the experiments that have been done in Diyalbagh have shown hierarchy of frequency which characterize the group of meditationists, such as the 3, 4.5, 76, 108 and 926. The first few of them relate to the region of universal mind, and the higher ones relate to the region of pure spiritual content. In literature, several people have compared many other meditation practices done amongst Himalayan Yoga traditional group or East Shunya Yoga group or Vipassana group. Each have shown that there is an increase in frequency or higher frequency as higher conscious states are achieved based on how much one achieves, including Dr. Aviva Barkovich-Ohana, who's also done a similar study in which she's shown increase in overall karma synchronization when meditation is undertaken. So clearly there appears to be a frequency correlate to the states of consciousness. In a separate study, neural correlates of mystical experience in Carmelite nuns amongst the Christians have also been made, but this was done, of course, using fMRI. As we all understand, fMRI can only record very low frequencies based on the blood flow. However, it is a high spatial resolution and is able to localize some of the centers which are activated when higher mystical experiences are experienced. And one can see that some of the yellow spots that you see them in these diagrams relate to some of the experiences that the nuns made when they were not meditating, but when they were recollecting the experiences that they had made during the meditation. So as I can read in the slide, the main limitation of the study was the fact that the subjects were asked to remember and relive a mystical experience rather than actually try to achieve one. However, some of the locations are clearly visible here. Another talk that I personally heard on the YouTube relates to a research done by De Ridder. He's actually a scientist from New Zealand who works on the ear disease, which is, we all know, is sound and therefore has a lot of frequencies, and they have been able to somehow, in a very disconnected sense, not exactly to meditation, been able to see that there is a frequency hierarchy seen around the cingulate gyrus, which I have just made as a cartoon in both the diagrams that you see, either on the right hand side or on the left hand side. This is what he implied in his talk that he had given. Clearly this is trying to fill up a picture which needs some experimental verification. So our motivation was to identify neural frequency correlates activated during meditation of an ultra-transcendental meditation type as prescribed in the Santmat. These correlates are then compared with the subjects who either do not practice any formal meditation or are still to start one. So we divided the group into 4 parts: the non-initiates, pre-initiates, first initiates and second initiates. So here second initiates means an advanced meditator, and non-initiates means they are not following a particular specific style of meditation. This is an experimental setup in which a subject is asked to sit in an MEG. This was done at National Brain Research Center, and we had a certain number of subjects of various categories to compare with. Every subject was given about 10 minutes to practice meditation. Control subjects were asked to focus attention to control their mind wandering. We divided the entire 10 minutes into 10 epochs. First and second minute is the start, and fifth or sixth minute is about the mid, and ninth and 10th minute is about the end. The spectral content of the epoch data was analyzed by a software called Brainstorm, and we tried to use an inverse engineering to try to localize from the recordings of the various probes back to the point, perhaps in the brain, from where they may have originated. This technique is called LORETA, which stands for Localization Standard Low Resolution Electromagnetic Tomography. The idea was to identify hierarchy of frequency correlate, attention apertures, and localize them on the cortical geography. The various frequency bands that we studied are shown here. We studied broadly up to 45 Hertz, but in 1 or 2 cases tried to go to higher frequencies. In general, we found that the meditationist had higher frequency response as compared to the control group. This is trying to show the sources from where the various frequencies were produced, and these are for advanced meditators, which is like second initiates. And what one finds is that this is in the beginning of the meditation, which means 1 or 2 minutes, and we find that the locations are not very specific but generally scattered. If you see multiple colored points, it simply means different meditators. So let's say 5 pink point means that this is a gamma band activity from 5 different subjects. Clearly you see that different subjects are showing the gamma activity spread almost over the entire brain, but generally around the midline. When they entered the middle of their meditation, which is about 5th or 6th minutes, we find that these tend to get clustered. So as you can see, the pink points are coming closer to each other, the yellow points are also coming close to each other, and so on and so forth. Towards the end, we clearly see that 5 different meditators have their activity very specific for a very specific frequency band at a very specific place. So this appears that there is a repeatability of an experiment over 5 different meditators for different frequencies, and that appears that there is certain places in the brain which are specific for certain frequencies. This, when plotted on a slightly different diagram, is also seen here. Again, the clustering is very much observable, and we clearly see a hierarchy. As you can see that the delta band, which is denoted here with a purple dot, and the yellow, which is denoting the gamma band, there is a clear arrangement which is hierarchical, that is lower frequencies at one place and higher frequencies somewhere else. At least for one particular case, we tried to analyze at higher frequencies also, and we found that those frequencies were even deeper down beyond the yellow point. You can see some of them, but we have not repeated it for many subjects. So we are still looking for the data. When we talked about the novice meditators, which is some people who have just begun to meditate, we find that results are very similar, but the clustering is not that sharp. So this is, at the end of the meditation, you can see that the clustering is not that sharp as compared to the experienced meditators that we have seen here. And this is also shown in another diagram, which again sees that the clustering is not as sharp as that is for experienced meditators. But when we talk about non-meditators, we clearly see that there is a complete disarray of the structure, and this midline, which was the characteristic of an experienced meditator, is completely missed because different meditators are emanating different frequencies literally spread all over the brain's geography. And when you see it in a slightly different diagram, this is where these frequencies tend to emanate, which is quite different compared to the experienced meditators. So you can see on the left hand side is the experienced meditators versus the right hand side, which is the control group. There is a clear difference between the two. When we compare the experienced meditators versus the meditators which are in the novice state, again you see that the clustering is slightly different compared to the experienced meditators. So clearly it appears that the meditation is doing something, and the depth of meditation is trying to get something which is, as Dr. Dayal Perry mentioned, in terms of 3 hours, there's a repeatability amongst various subjects. This therefore shows that there is a relative association. I would not claim to have any close overlap, but clearly there's an association between the experiential diagram that is on the left hand side versus the experimental diagram on the right hand side. And therefore there appears to be something interesting that we continue to study in future, and perhaps we can call them as referential points. Another result that we found interesting, we are still studying this, is that there was some kind of a cycle in which the activity sort of repeated itself. For some subjects, this cycle went through very quickly. For other subjects, it took a longer time. And in the beta band, this activity was seen, but this cycling was not there in the start of the meditation session, but it started around the middle and perhaps matured towards the end of the meditation session. And this is again towards the end of the meditation session, the beta bands are cycling through this in a particular way, and for the gamma band, this cycle goes a little further down towards the occipital side, or the parietal side to be more exact, and therefore there appears to be some interesting phenomena going on. And this is towards the end of the session, the cycling sort of continues. This is a simple experiment we tried, but there is clearly a relation between the experiential locations or apertures or chakras, whatever you may call it. Although for us these are called kamals and padams, the higher order chakras are called kamals and padams. The data is still insufficient because we have used only 10 minutes of short meditation, which may not be sufficient to reach higher states. We have generally confined ourselves to about 45 Hz, although we are striving to go higher, and therefore some of the higher order things may not have been seen. The third limitation that we have done is that we have used a generic MRI image to plot our data, and therefore for individuals the anatomy may not be exactly the same, and therefore the way trying to overlap on the same MRI picture may not be a very exact figure, but that is also we are trying to improve on it. These are some of the people who are involved in our team, and we are extremely indebted to most revered Professor P.S. Sanghi Sahab, Emeritus Chairman, Advisory Committee on Education, for incessant guidance and motivation, and to introduce into an area in which we are absolutely blind, and we are struggling to figure out or try to see the light on the other side of the tunnel. Thank you so much.